With COP26 imminently arriving in the UK, we want to take this opportunity to inspire people to commit to tackling the climate crisis and stop burning stuff. So tomorrow, on the 26th of October at 8 a.m, we will premiere a very special episode showcasing some of the most pioneering technologies already available in Britain and encouraging you all to help us spread the word and clean up the energy we use. We want to start a movement that will encourage people to adopt these technologies and stop burning stuff. Are you with us? Find out by tuning in tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Fully Charged Plus podcast. This week sees the return of Alex Voigt. Now, I've spoken to Alex Voigt many times. He's a great guy. He's been a supporter of the mission to transform the world to sustainable carbon-free energy for 40 years. He's an engineer. He is absolutely fascinated with the ability of humankind to develop a better future via the use of technology. So Alex is a regular contributor to Clean Technica. He's a passionate advocate of electric vehicles, a keen supporter of Tesla. I think it's fair to say that, and a sometimes controversial critic of the German auto industry. But I think it's important I just want to quickly state now that Alex is very keen to help the German auto industry transform into an electric car manufacturing industry. And it's a difficult transition we're all going through, and particularly the German auto industry. But before we start, do remember to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite podcast app, or indeed on YouTube. And do check out our Patreon page and YouTube memberships, and please tell your friends and family about the work we do and suggest that they could try having a listen to the Fully Charged Plus podcast. And here is a very quick word from our wonderful sponsor, without whom this gorgeous podcast would simply not be possible. My Energy is putting the I back into British innovation. My Energy is putting the I back into inventing the future. My Energy is putting the I back into inspiring a nation. Recharging the world with green, smart energy. Charge your EV with your PV and more. Visit myenergy.com and help to spark the green revolution. My Energy, driving the charge to a greener future. Okay, that's enough. Let's dive in. Please welcome to the Fully Charged Plus podcast, Mr. Alex Voigt. Alex, thank you for finding this time to talk to us on Fully Charged Plus. Okay, so over the weekend, I was actually traveling through Europe over the weekend. Okay. I've just been in the south of France and Spain. We actually drove back from Spain in a Tesla Model 3.
Oh, nice.
Which was very nice. It was quite a long drive. And I just want to quickly get this out of the way at the beginning. The least problematic thing we faced in the whole journey was charging. Where do you stop for a wee? Can we get a cup of tea? Oh, they don't make. We'll have coffee. Where are we going to have lunch? Is this the right roundabout? Are we on the right direction on the auto route? Those are all the normal problems that everyone has to deal with. Charging was irrelevant. And we drove across France 4 years ago in a Model S, and it was more of a challenge then. There were more gaps in the supercharger network. Now, all we do is drive past superchargers because we don't need them, because we're going on to the next one.
I think I did this a year ago, so 2 years ago. I went down to the Pyrenees, so the border to Spain. And I figured on the Spanish side, it's getting more and more difficult to find superchargers. And because I drive now with my Model 3 2.5 years, I'm so used to supercharging. Yeah. It's even hard for me to relate all the problems the other poor guys have with EVs. Because, I mean, again, for me, it's, as you said, it's so relaxing, and I don't even think about it,
No, that's not the problem, is it? No. Yeah. I mean, I missed a turning. That's a problem. When you miss the little turning and you're going into an industrial estate in a town you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Because you went off the wrong one at the roundabout. And and it's a one-way street. All that happened. And we had our car taken by the police because I'd parked it in a square in Spain. It looked lovely, quite late at night and quite near where we were staying. And on a Monday morning, that square is a market.
Oh, wow.
is the weekly market. So they take all the cars away. So I got it back. Luckily, it was gone. It was taken by the police, not by a criminal.
They towed it away?
They lifted it onto they craned it onto it. And the reason I knew is because I've never seen it before, but I had your car alarm has been activated. It says on my phone, so I knew something had happened. So so all the problems were nothing to do with charging, but that was quite funny. And the Spanish police were delightful and very helpful. Didn't speak English.
Yeah.
I don't speak Spanish, but we managed to work it out. Very good. Anyway, that's a bit of Tesla news just because you've just been to I love the fact that it was called a county fair. County fair at the Tesla Gigafactory. And I didn't realize that actually there was a fairground with like a big wheel and stuff. It was actually a fair.
Right. Yeah, it was. It's called in Germany Fest or Fiesta, or Spanish people would say. And but the county fair was outside. Obviously, there was a lot of party and booths, and you had food and drinks. And for the kids, they could drive around on a small trip with small, Tesla vehicles.
Teslas, yeah.
Participants could outside, first of all, check out the Model Y, which is pretty new in Europe, as you, of course, know. So sitting in and playing a little bit around, getting familiar with it. And that happened actually even before the entrance. So you didn't need a ticket even to do that, which is good, because we all know it was restricted to 9,000 participants. It turned out, I think, really to be 9,000, and that's it. So they didn't. I mean, when I arrived at about 2:00, I've seen few people already coming in my direction. So well, this wasn't 9:00, but some people left already after a few hours, which is fine. And so potentially they could have opened the door for other people, but I think it would have been very complex in terms of organization. So they didn't do that. So a lot of people. Some people complained because the event was completely overbooked. I mean, first of all, the intention of the county fair was to allow, let's say, normal people, not, fanboys or like me, or, BEV advocates like you and other people, to join. But it was more an event really to give the population, the citizens from Brandenburg and Berlin, the ability to sneak in and to get an impression, because all what you read in the German press, obviously, is not always very positive for various reasons. So it's good to have people, just understand this is not evil and this are real people and everything, So that was the intention. So therefore, there was a priority for people from that region. So Berlin and Brandenburg, which you probably know are two states in Germany.
Yeah.
And that was overbooked within 24 hours. So I don't know, tenfold or whatever. So I heard actually quite credible statements from someone who talked directly to someone from Tesla. That's been 1.6 million people tried to get in, and there's been seats for 9,000. So. So long story short, I've been very lucky because I'm living in Munich and not in Berlin to get in. And, the Tesla owner clubs in Europe, they got a small allocation of tickets as well. We talk about 20-ish or so, which I call really very fair, because nowadays these people are helping with deliveries. So end of last quarter in Germany, but I also think in Belgium, other places, they help Tesla out with volunteering to explain the car to people who are completely new to it, right? So, and that's fair that they get a card, and then obviously some influencers and other people got special cards, I believe. I probably belong to that group nowadays, and some people from the US been flying over, but not many. But the majority.
And this, when you say people from the US, this is not Tesla employees. These are fans of the.
Yeah. So, but not really many. Very, very selective, I think. But the important message here is, I've been at the Battery Day in California in September last year, right? So a year ago, and you had all this, fanboys running around, and the influencers and the media and the bank guys and the analysts. And this time it was very different. You had just the people around your corner, very total normal, ordinary people walking there, and with all their objections and all their questions and all their misunderstandings about Tesla, would get in direct touch with management from Tesla, with senior managers standing at the line and answering almost all questions, which was really awesome. So
and would those senior managers, they would have been German?
No,
German speaking certainly. Or were they Americans? Or
it was pretty mixed. So I think all of these people are really working in Giga Berlin. So you had obviously some younger people, but I talked to people who prefer to speak English. Other people just being German, and I think I've seen a sign that 20% of the people are coming, I believe, from Germany, and 80% from 50 different countries. Wow. This gives you a nudge how international that is. In terms of the hiring process, I know that I think English is mandatory for obvious reasons.
Right. Wow.
You need to understand basic English. Otherwise, it's going to be tough. But German language, obviously, as a second language first language is very much preferred and very important. Yeah.
Because the things that I'm not sure about, and I could have easily looked on Google Maps to work it out, but is how far it is from Berlin. So I know mildly just from having driven around a bit in that area, roughly the sort of geography of it. But I don't know, is it near Berlin?
So in London, you would call it suburbs. So it's
I see. So it isn't miles away.
No,
then
it's 20 minutes trip with the train. So pretty easy going there. It's from a logistics perspective, it's a perfect spot because you have two autobahns crossing there where you could use, which is great. You have a train that's going historically to this ground already. With the train station, they're gonna relocate that, but still you have the train station. And Alexander Riederer, who is responsible from Tesla for developing the regions, he was, very early on asking for a speed track for bicyclists, so that you can go from Berlin with bicycle to work and back. So Tesla early on said, we prefer if you come with the train and not with your car, which I did. I came with the train. I mean, I've been driving with my car to Berlin, but there I used it.
But then you get on a train.
I mean, I'm not missing an opportunity to drive my car. It's just so much fun,
Yeah.
But that was very convenient. And I have to say, I must say, Americans always organize these events perfectly well.
Yeah, they're good at that stuff.
They're really good with that. There was no waiting time, we had at the train station was one bus after the other bringing us to the ground, which was kind of a 2 to 3 minutes drive through the so-called forest, which is in reality a plantation. And we learned, I learned on Saturday that they're gonna actually even plant more valuable trees within this forest too. So they already do 3 times what they need to, and now they do even more than that. So it's pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is how it's so hard to judge from photographs how big it is. I mean, clearly it's pretty big, but it's very hard to kind of assess that. I mean, is it? I have no idea if it's roughly the same size footprint as the one in Nevada. I mean, is it as big as that? Or is it smaller than that? Or, of course, they haven't even finished building that, have they? I know.
So I haven't compared, but I believe Nevada is probably even bigger. But what you need to understand is, looking at the videos, is that it's only 25% of the entire building we are talking here. So only 25% of the production place is at the moment in construction. So
It's going to be 4 times bigger than it is now, sort of thing, basically.
Yes,
Or, yeah,
yes.
3 times
Plus, you
bigger.
have it's a battery factory which comes on top.
Right.
So that's an additional one. So the ground is really big. I can't give you numbers, and if I would,
No.
probably you can't imagine this. Anyhow, it's big. It's huge.
Yeah.
And in the building, I mean, where we had a factory tour, we haven't been everywhere. So it
Right.
was kind of 2 kilometers walking through this
Wow.
space
Wow.
in bending back and forth
Yeah.
stuff, but there's been a lot of areas where we couldn't go because they are still working there. So we're trying to install machinery and everything. So which is totally normal and acceptable. So I can relate a little bit because in my career, I counted lately that I've been probably in about 100 production facilities in my life.
Wow.
Production and logistics facilities. So I can relate a little bit here. And some of them have been automotive suppliers. So I also have a little bit of sense and feel here about that. So let's put it like that. If you go in there, it's freaking big. Yeah, it's just amazing. But if you have been before in other factories or plants where 500,000 vehicles are produced, it's small. So,
Right.
and that's a positive because
Oh, that's interesting. So, because the one place I have been not far is Wolfsburg, the Volkswagen factory. I've been around that. That is very big.
that is very big. That's very old, and actually they just have planned to restructure this completely to get up their feet here because they have a lot of issues and challenges, as you certainly know. There's a crisis meeting lately with VW. That's going to be much bigger. But the reason why Tesla can produce on a smaller footprint or cubicle meters, if you like, more vehicles than anybody else has to do with the production technology they are using and also with the material flow, how they are organized, how the entire building is structured. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why they can be more efficient here in terms of investment and still having a very high output.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an unfair advantage. The 2 huge unfair advantages that Tesla have is, one, there wasn't a factory there to start with that they had to change and adapt and modernize and try and fit in, modern equipment. They built it from the ground up. And 2, they don't have they just don't have the legacy. If you think of the legacy of the Wolfsburg factory or even Zwickau, they've had to do an enormous amount to adapt basically a factory, which is really a giant machine, from making one thing to making something totally different that needs completely different stuff to make it. And it's got to be such a challenge which is, I think, in a sense, what you always talk about, what I talk about is that the struggle that the established, the long established automotive industry have in changing, regardless of what their attitude. Just technically, it's a really difficult thing for them to do.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, Tesla when they bought the NUMMI plant in California,
that's true. You're right. Yeah, that was existing.
It's been in the beginning that big that they thought they can put a roller coaster in there for their employees, for the break to have some fun. Then they realized later on that they don't have space. So, because the material flow and the structure of the factory is just very bad for that. What Elon and Tesla wanted to achieve and to do there. So that place is completely packed. So, but I think they paid 50 million or so. It was kind of pocket money,
almost free.
Almost free. So that was a good deal, obviously. And the first, and you're right. I mean, with Shanghai and then Berlin and Austin, they can start from scratch, which is a big benefit. But and that's an important but. The incumbent automakers are building new factories all the time. So you have, for instance, you mentioned VW. And yes, in Leipzig, you need to restructure, or Dresden, you need to restructure an existing plant to BEVs. But on the other side of the coin, in China, for instance, in Anhui, they are building a completely new one. So
Right.
if they wanted to, they could potentially do the same in terms of layout and production technology like Tesla, but they don't do that. First
Right.
of all, there is knowledge missing in terms of certain production processes. And secondly, the incumbent automakers are not used to take the risks Tesla is taking. So if you have, like Tesla, the front end, the rear casting, and the structured battery pack in the middle, which is one of the very exciting innovations here, you take the risk that the entire project is completely failing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You remember with the Model 3 in the beginning when they tried to ramp the factory, it broke almost the neck for Tesla.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
why did this happen? Well, one of the reasons have been that they had a lot of problems to assemble the battery packs in, not in manual work, but somehow automated. It simply didn't work.
Right.
And that was a new way to, assemble batteries into a pack, an approach others are not doing. And Tesla is continuing with this cell formats. They improve them now with the 4680, which is another innovation coming out of the battery plant from Giga Berlin. And each innovation has risks for failure. And the same is true for the Berlin factory, because there are quite a lot of innovations in there. And incumbent automakers never would take all that risks. That is just not their cup of tea, which also has a little bit to do with the payment systems incumbent automakers have. If you're a CEO or board member of an automaker and you know that you probably do this 5 years if you're lucky, you try to achieve your goals in those 5 years, and your goals are profit, revenue, and stock price. So margin, maybe not, maybe even two. So you make sure that this is happening, but you can't invest for a time horizon for the next, let's say, 2 to 4 years. Where the benefit of that, what you are doing is, the guys after you are collecting that and claiming victory. So, and bonus.
Yeah.
Very simple. So bonus-malus system is one of the biggest issues incumbent automakers have in order to succeed with BEVs. The structure is just wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm intrigued though because I'm not aware of the negative press that Tesla may or may not have had in Germany. I mean, I haven't been witness to that, but I mean, I'm intrigued what that's based on. I mean, I don't know whether, I mean, can you explain that? So you were saying some of the people that were going along may have had a fairly negative attitude towards Tesla and this huge new factory in their neighborhood. I mean, I would have assumed it, because it was clearly it's going to employ an enormous amount of people I would think in the local area, isn't it? I mean,
I think there's a couple of things coming together here. Number one is we have kind of 2 million indirect employees in the automotive industry. And if you worked or your family worked for Audi or for BMW, VW, you name it, since generations, it's very hard to say, okay, now I am starting to work for Tesla because they are somehow better, or to accept that there may be some innovations. And, the amount of car companies that failed over time is endless. So it's always a safe bet to say, oh, they won't make it. That's another attitude that worked very well in the past, because you've been always right. This company's never made it, because you need 10, 15 billion alone for ramping up a company to a size that really matters. And you only succeed if you have true innovations. Otherwise, nobody will buy your cars simply because there's brand loyalty. So then there is, unfortunately, a situation that, and I published on your blog about that there's an incentive matrix for journalists and for automotive journalists in terms of discounts for vehicles, and also they get. I mean, if you're a journalist, you get 15% in Germany for free, and for all options, 30% off. And that's 15% from the vehicle price and 30% on all options. A lot of money, and that's before negotiation. So, secondly, journalists get a vehicle to test the vehicle, and they get it the whole year through. So the companies obviously provide every year new models. So they change the vehicles they get into the newest model after a few weeks. But as the end result, you have a car driving around the whole year. And this is not me as an influencer making something up here. I mean, this is a journalist I interviewed who confirmed that. Right. And I got a lot of confirmations from other people that this is reality. So if you, as a journalist, don't pay for a car, but you have one or even two cars in front of your house, and you don't pay for gas, even two, not for maintenance, you have that what we call in Germany the sizzle in your head. So you're kind of careful with what you write somehow about some companies, which is natural. So it's not a good situation. And then they also get, all the trips for car reveals to nice places in the world for free, and $200 dinners and side program. And so they get everything. So they are, if you come back, you are completely positive minded to this company. And it's very hard to you find negative things, but it's difficult. The other part is that the car reviews you are running are not the cars you and me would buy. Or get in a dealership. So these are special press cars. They've been produced on separated, dedicated lines with dedicated people and dedicated measurements, and with much more time, and sometimes with different material even. So it's fair to say that most of the cars that these guys are testing and providing to you information in television or whatever, this is a car that you won't be able to buy because
you wouldn't be able to buy one.
So it's not the same. So that is number two. What else? There's obviously been, based on this FAT storm in the news. I mean, all the newspaper are living from advertising. I mean, this is their main income, because we all remember when you and me had to pay for every newspaper. That time is gone. Since the internet, since all information is kind of for free online, people are used to not pay for news. So therefore, you just have no subscription business. People are used to get it for free. So the only income these companies have, and you're from the industry, you know that, is ads. So if you have a big ad supplier, who's paying a lot of money, and your livelihood, you are very careful with what you do. And I know this from firsthand. So people told me that, journalists been writing article about Tesla, and the chief editor said, that's a good article, that's a correct article, but we are not going to publish it. And the journalist said, why not? And he said, well, because it positions Tesla in a very positive way, and we may get a problem with our biggest advertising companies, which is the automotive industry. And they didn't ask me not to do it, but I just don't want to have that conversation. So that's how it goes. I mean,
I suppose that the other key thing is that Tesla don't advertise.
And
so there's no newspaper or magazine that's going, let's not upset Tesla because they bought a lot of expensive. They just don't ever advertise it.
And they don't give you a car for free.
And they don't give. I mean, they have loaned me a car. The longest loan I had was 4 days. That was exceptional. I felt really privileged. I had a Tesla Model S for 4 days. Oh my God! Normally it's like 2 hours and bring it back. No. I mean, they don't do this. I mean, because people have often said that to me, assuming, and I think it's it feels like I think it's less. There's less of that in the UK in terms of long-term loans. I've never had that, and I don't know anyone who's had that, but I've got a feeling that has happened. Certainly. And certainly I've just been in Barcelona with Cupra, and they put us up in a hotel for a night, which is all this, and took us out for a meal. So that's absolutely standard stuff. But I've just watched my review. It's not exactly glowing positivity. There's a bit of criticism in there, but I absolutely take that. But the thing that really bugs me about traditional automotive journalists, and I've written a couple of ranty things about this, we haven't put them out yet, is for most of my adult life, when there's been a magazine article, a TV show, something about a car, good or bad, regardless of whether they said good or bad things, they never mentioned where the materials that made that car came from, or the process of extracting those materials, transporting them, refining them, producing them. Never. It was never mentioned. The actual metal that goes on the tips of the Aston Martin DB7 exhaust pipe. I don't know what it is. Now, all of them. What about the battery materials and where they come from? And what about lithium coming from Bolivia? They suddenly make Greta Thunberg look like Donald Trump. They are so politically correct, and that really annoys me, because you go, what about the petrol that you burnt when you went around in circles on a runway?
So that's anyway, true. I mean, that's another factor, actually, because the automotive industry is pointing this out all the time while not comparing in a fair way. We all know that a lot of pollution is coming from the raw materials in ICE vehicles, and also raw materials and other stuff. And, we all use computers with lithium in there and raw materials. And if you have an ICE car, you have this catalyst that is using a lot of not really healthy
platinum, all kinds of things, very expensive materials. Well, that's why, why would anyone steal a catalytic converter? Because it's got a lot of really expensive stuff in it.
So the industry is trying to influence consumers. So the main idea from the automotive industry is to keep the loyal customers to VW, BMW, and you name it, loyal. So they've been buying this brand for a long time, and when we switch over, we as BMW to BEVs, they're supposed to buy a BEV from BMW. So the biggest fear is that they are losing their customer base. But this is already mixed up. And then there are other reasons. Environmental groups have a lot of rights to sue and to hinder projects, and that's not specific for Tesla. That is actually here everywhere, that they sue and they try to stop projects all the time with the same argumentation, which is also very questionable, because if you make a fair calculation, for instance, talking about the water supply in Berlin,
I've seen a few reports about that here.
So I made the math, and there is a coal mine in Brandenburg, and they are consuming 862 times what Berlin is consuming. So
to dig up coal, which you then burn, which then leaves a hideous.
So this tells you, I believe, everything. And and this is just one example. There are a lot of other companies now, even the automakers are using much more water. And by the way, one thing that I learned in the factory tour, because I've been lucky that the senior manager was giving me a special tour through the factory. So I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know, which is great. And which is, by the way, the reason why I'm making a series of videos right now. The first one is out already. Second one I hope to finish today. I just interrupted because of...
Oh, right. I'm sorry to interrupt your editing.
To explain a little bit what we've heard. But what he said is, and I found this also interesting. I didn't know it before, to be honest. He said to me, all other automakers just look at the water consumption they have with the production of the vehicle, but nobody is calculating into that the consumption of the battery that is in the vehicle. So they get the battery from CATL or Panasonic or you name it, and they just treat it like there's no other water consumption when the battery was produced.
To make the battery,
usual batteries, in particular pouch batteries, which is used from actually almost all German automakers, is consuming a hell lot of water. But the new production technology from Tesla is almost not consuming any water, because it's a dry technology. And in that dry technology, they just don't need a lot of water to run this through the process. So what I'm trying to say here is this 1.4 million cubic meter peak consumption Tesla talks about for phase one of the factory, which is 500,000 cars, includes the battery production totally. And that makes the distance between Tesla consumption, water consumption per vehicle, and all others miles and miles away. So it's the least valid argument you can bring that Tesla is not doing a good job here with water. That really makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. The least valid. All I hear on Twitter and elsewhere is the least valid argument. Very, very
Yeah.
often, that's a very common thing to hear.
But, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that has also to do with that negative news about Tesla are selling very well. So people like to read that.
Yes.
But on the other side of the coin, Robert, it's very important to understand that in Germany, the vast majority of the citizens are really very positive about Tesla. And what
good.
you read in the newspaper is just, well, because this is selling very well. And yes, you find people who are misinformed, but the most people just, are really very happy that Tesla is coming. And even the automotive.
That's fantastic.
And so I've seen the people there at the factory tour, just as I said, ordinary people. And I haven't heard really negative comments, right? So more positive and really happy people sitting the first time in a BEV and realizing what kind of crazy talk the thing has. It's been nice to see, and I believe that this was a good activity from Tesla to educate the people that this is the future. And I believe the majority of people went out there, a vast majority, and is really happy about what Tesla is doing there. And the entire program was well done. Tesla will do something like that in Austin when Austin factory is ready. So I think this is good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, I've just seen literally this morning, the first time I've seen it is a graph of car sales in the UK alone for September. And there's been this, completely not surprising, enormous spike in, so 29% of new car sales were 100% battery electric, not hybrids or plug-in. 29%, which, I mean, it was 5%. I thought 5% it was doing well. I don't think that it'll maintain that because of what's happened here, particularly with fuel prices, with the, all that stuff has gone a bit crazy. There's been a real big spike. But the real key takeaway is when you look at the graph of the makes of the electric cars that are selling. Volkswagen, very good, 2,500. They can't even fit on the same graph as Tesla. Tesla is just so ridiculous. I mean, it must be the most horrendous thing if you're working at Volkswagen or Nissan. I mean, Nissan are about to bring out a new car, and it is the interior of that car. Oh God, of course, I now can't remember what it's called. I've sat in it and talked to them about it. Anyway, there's finally a new Nissan SUV, a small SUV that's coming out very soon. What? I've completely forgotten the name. But apart from that, but their sales are very low, and they're just absolutely anecdotally driving around the UK and Europe. My wife is as interested in cars as she is in garden worms. She's just not bothered. She's not, and she constantly spots Tesla. There's another one. There's a Tesla. Look at all those Teslas. We went in a big supermarket outside Madrid to get some cheese and wine to give to friends here because there's no food in the UK. No, I'm joking. There is. And that supermarket, there's no supercharger there. It was just a standard big supermarket, and there was, I think we counted 9 Teslas. Yeah, you go, this is Barcelona. I mean, it's not, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see that in California or possibly certain parts of London. I mean, but somehow it blew me away there.
Think about Germany. So the Model 3, we are not talking Model Y, which is going to be more popular. Yeah. Model 3 has been in September the second best-selling car in Germany.
Wow. In Germany?
Right behind the Golf.
Incredible, isn't it?
Can you imagine that? And the distance is 58 vehicles. So Tesla almost made number one here. And if you combine all vehicles in Germany in this class, like C-Class, BMW 3 Series and stuff like that, combined Tesla Model 3 sold more in September. And yes, we have to, of course, say there is an effect end of the quarter where Tesla is pushing the vehicles into markets like Europe, because we don't have a production facility on this continent yet. But still, at the end of the day, it's totally crazy. I mean, this is a country where all those huge, big premium automakers are located in, and you have a lot of brand loyalty. So to convince all of these people really to consider another BMW is quite something. And let's not forget that Tesla doesn't do any ads. So they don't do any advertising. They don't really have a real PR department where journalists can talk to them. And, it's amazing. And all of this is just because at the end of the day, the entire experience with the car, and you mentioned the superchargers, but I would point out here in particular the software ability these vehicles have is so miles away from everything any other automaker is able to provide, and they completely missed this boat. I mean, they are falling behind, and what is happening right now, in my opinion, is that the transformation is accelerating. So you mentioned it already with the UK. Same is happening here in Germany, and it will happen in other countries too. So incumbent automakers are not used to fast change. So if that would have gone much slower, they would have had a chance to look better than they look right now. And of course, they say all the time, it's a chip shortage and other part supply issues, which is true. I'm not saying that there is no problem, but I know also from a lot of sources that kind of everything is being put in that box, and it's not really the reality. If I look at the registration numbers, also from VW, from the ID series vehicles, the ID3 and ID4. As you said, it's okay. I'm happy for every BEV on the road. It's okay. It's not so bad, but it's just a different. Tesla is just a different league. And just imagine what's going to happen when Giga Berlin works. I mean, you buy a car from this continent is different than you buy a car from the US, where we all always sniffed our nose because.
China, it's the same really applies to both.
Now people are saying it's a fantastic quality from China. And I've seen a lot of very happy Model Y owners in Germany. So, long story short, it's getting worse and it's getting tight. So, if this continues on that pace in terms of transformation, we're gonna see a lot of problems in Germany. For sure.
Because I think this is an important thing to remind listeners and viewers is that, because when I hear your critique of the traditional German automotive industry and your praise for Tesla, I always want to remind people, well, you're doing this because you care about the traditional automotive industry and it employs a lot of people and it's an important industry. And in a sense, it's the management. It's not the people who are making BMWs on the production line or even the designers or the engineers developing the technology. It is the way it's been managed and their attitudes of let's try and delay this whole electric car thing as long as we can. That's what I always hear in the background. We're very excited about our new electric car, which will come out in 2025. I mean, there was like the next that VW that was on display at the Munich Auto Show. Fantastic little city car. And you're going, when? Can we have it next week? No, it's 2025. What the? And there's Chinese companies making cars like that for half the price now. Today, we've just put out a review about it. I mean, amazing.
I was kind of 2 years, I think, from 2015 to, or even earlier, to 17, arguing with friends and family about that. And nobody really understood what I'm talking about. And then I've been asked to write about it. And then people called me a patriot because I'm, as you said, it's actually exactly happening what I predicted, unfortunately. Right. And we have a lot of bankruptcies already here in Germany, in particular from the supplier side.
Right.
Because they're the first ones who are going to suffer and are not unable to manage it. I don't expect VW to go bankrupt and stuff like that. It's a systemic risk, so that's not going to happen. The government will jump in and bail them out. But as you said, for the normal worker in the line, that doesn't matter, And they're gonna, and there's a lot of fear already in the industry about this. because slowly they're realizing it. And I had even phone calls years ago with automotive managers from big companies here in Germany, and they didn't get it. They didn't realize. I did my best really to try to inform them what I've seen coming, but they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And right now we still have the situation that in the companies they don't comprehend the full the issue and the what they really need to do to go out. I mean, to get out of that mess.
Yeah.
And Tesla is accelerating. The Asian BEVs are getting better and better, coming to Europe with NIO and many other brands, which I believe will sell well too, and getting a little bit market from the German automakers. German automakers have a big issue in the US at the moment, so sales is falling off the cliff. Again, There's also shortage of chips and other things, but the point is it really doesn't matter. What people don't realize is following. About 50% of all cars sold today are replacements. These are cars from people who need the car driving to work or doing their work. So they are forced to drive a car. So if they don't get the car they are used to and they switch over to another car and they decide, well, maybe it's now time to go BEV, and then they read and they compare and they decide for a Tesla, these people are not going back. They are not going back to the incumbent automaker. So in other words, don't expect that the sales for the big names is picking up like it was before. This is not. If you ask me, this is not going to happen. So Tesla will take a big share, and also smaller other full BEV manufacturers, in particular from Asia, where I believe some will be quite successful, others will go out of business.
Sure.
There will be consolidation also in the incumbent industry, quite big consolidation. I do see some options for Daimler Truck and Mercedes-Benz, which are the two new names in the on the block, right? Because Daimler is going to split into companies.
Right.
So long story short, I'm concerned. I continue to be concerned.
Yeah. Now, I would love your opinion on Sono, because I'm a fan. I'm a Sono fan, but it's based on, I met them once. We've just done an update of their latest version, and they're such an extraordinary small team behind that car. And it's in a sense, the side of the automotive industry that I'm most passionate about, because I want them to succeed. But I'm also now, I think, more now aware than I was when I first met them of the scale of the mountain they've got to climb to be able to produce, to have a production facility with a long line where there's loads of Sono science coming off the end of it at each day. It's huge. I mean, they're in the tiny little foothills of the Alps, to achieve that goal. I mean, do you think, and in a sense, they're probably, if they were going to survive, they're probably the quickest and easiest way is that they are bought by someone like Volkswagen, who takes the idea or a bigger company that's got the muscle and the money and the facilities to mass produce something like that. But do you think they can make it? Because I pray that they can. I really want them to.
So I've never talked to the management. I've never been on site. I've never driven one. So, but I have an opinion, and I should be careful with an opinion because I haven't done that. But I dare to say that, I have a lot of sympathy for small BEV companies trying as a startup to make a difference. Elon Musk is right that it was a lucky punch that they are still alive.
Yeah,
for a variety of reasons. For 50 years, not a single automotive company, not a single one made it.
Yeah.
So you had hundreds of startups with very fantastic ideas and nice cars, and they all vanished and disappeared. Now there's a window of opportunity. A lot of people think because money is cheap, so you get funding pretty easily. That's number one. And secondly, the incumbent's been too late with their BEV, so you can maybe sneak in with a good idea. Yeah. And Sono has quite some good ideas and some innovative stuff in there. And they have a pretty loyal customer base. So with crowdfunding and other things, they've been able to overcome the one or the other issue. But I share your point of view. You need, if you want to survive with under your own name and become an independent company, you need to think how I get 10 to 15 billion US dollars to ramp the company in the next 10 to 15 years to a size that it can survive on its own and creates positive cash flow. If you don't do that, which is totally fine, you don't have to, because it's a hard work. I wouldn't do that. So it kills you. So if you don't do that, the best what can happen to you is just a takeover. I mean, that someone is acquiring you. If your ideas and your values survive, which I believe the founders want to survive. So there's a lot of reluctance, which I fully understand, to even consider that. And what often is happening with the smaller companies with innovative ideas is that if the entire industry stands up and starts to innovate, there's just not a lot of room left. And of course, everybody steals from everyone. And not all concepts that look good on paper are in reality really good at the end of the day for the use case of the ordinary Joe. So I don't have details about financials and everything. I know that they are delivering, which is great, but I don't know how they want to grow to a size that they can survive on their own. I just don't see that, to be honest. Not because they do a bad job, but simply because, as you said, it's a mountain that is crazy to climb, and without big pockets and a lot of continuously innovating. New people coming in, I mean, with great resources, it's just almost impossible. And there's another thing I'd like to mention here, which I believe most people overlook. In the last days, we I think yesterday it was that Tesla opened up the full self-driving beta to other drivers which have a high score on their car, a safety score. So it's kind of every day that 1,000 drivers are now getting this solution, which is still better. And there's still needs to be improved, but it's still doing amazing stuff.
Incredible. The footage that you can see now on YouTube of those cars coping with crazy situations is staggering.
So if you compare, and you are in this long enough to be able to do that, where we've been standing a year ago, so we realize that the progress is incredible. So let's talk about what's going to happen in a year from now. So they will get there. I mean, there's just no doubt anymore. It's clear. And once you have cars, you can sell for pretty low money because the software is just to be replicated. You copy and paste the software. There's just no cost associated, really. Of course, you have to develop this further and pay for the data center and Dojo and you name it. But at the end of the day, the incremental cost is very limited for each, new full self-driving solutions that they push out. In other words, you can sell it for low money into the market, and all other companies just don't have that solution unless they license it from Tesla, or what actually Tesla is offering. So if you can buy a car, Robert, that drives home alone or that picks you up wherever you want, I mean, this is crazy. Think about it. Why would and you pay maybe 5 or 10 grand more than for the car that you otherwise would buy from another company. The decision is easy. It's very easy. So what I'm trying to say is that all those companies are going to fall off a cliff in terms of demand unless they have a solution on their own. And I don't see that. I mean, I look very deeply into what they develop as far as this is public. And this is the biggest mistake they make, that they just believe, a good ADA system, lane keeping and all of that is sufficient. It's not. So not only that they are lacking behind with, battery technology and all of that, and now they try to step up and to get into this game. But in terms of full self-driving and robot taxis, that's gonna be, that's gonna be dramatic. So being in their shoes, that would keep me awake at night,
Yeah. No, I mean, we must wrap up now, but one of the things that I've had recently, I'm trying to remember what the car was. It doesn't matter, actually. It's not relevant what the car was. I had a loaner car, electric car, new, from a really reputable company, and there's an app, and on the app you can control when it charges, you can reset the temperature when it's plugged in, all that stuff. I had the car for 4 days. I could not make the app connect to the car. And I rang them up and I said, can you tell me? No, you put the VIN number in, the little number on the windscreen, and you put that in, and it just was spinning, the little spinning dial forever. And eventually the car went back. And then I remembered when I picked up my Model 3, I said, oh, I've got the Tesla app already for my Powerwall. And I said, I'll do the Tesla. I don't even know what happened. I went, oh, I must update the app. I was saying this to the people, and they just smiled at me. And there's my car on the app. Everything works 100% perfectly from the get-go. It's never gone wrong in 2.5, nearly 3 years. Why does that work? That would be, if I was any car manufacturer and I saw that and how smoothly that operated and how easy it is for someone who's not bothered about software and you putting in the right code and knowing how the app works. I don't need to know that. I want to know, can I lock the car? Yes. Can I flash the lights when I can't find it in the car park? Yes. All those things are just, it's the same as the charging. And that is really, I just want to say that to all the other manufacturers. Just look at this. Make it me having your Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, Nissan, Toyota, Honda. Make it as easy to use as they are, and I'll buy it.
Well, and that's true, and that won't happen, and it won't happen because understand VW has 40,000 suppliers. Their entire structure internally is based on that. So, if
40,000 different suppliers that supply parts for their cars.
Yes, so it's a freaking big amount, and Tesla has a lot of suppliers too. But the point here is you have to build the car around the software. So you have to have a software department which has a say. They have a mandate, and they are sitting in a position. And if they say no, then nothing is happening. So, and this is one of the major issues these guys have, because they need to change the internal structure, and they need really to change the power play in the company, and they need to change the vertical integration completely. And they just don't do that because it's business as usual and they don't know how. Yeah. That's why I've been saying years ago, I don't see that they will be able to transform. And the only option I see for them to win is to start a small, incumbent organization, a new startup, an IPO really.
Yeah.
That is developing new BEVs with new ideas from scratch without any ties to the mother company other than they get all money and resources they need, which is a lot to ask.
That's a lot to ask.
It's I believe, the only option they have even today, because they're running in circles. They still don't understand that what you just mentioned. I mean, and this is so annoying for customers. All those problems you have when you try to use a car. And this is happening here with the German manufacturers too. I mean, they claim a lot about software, but the reality is very, very different.
It's just always frustrating. I mean, that other example I had, which was at least it worked finally, was the Seat Me, which is the same as the E-Up. And I love that. I love the size of that car, the ease of driving it, the park, everything about it. I really loved. And the simplicity, it was stripped right down, it was cheap. And the whole point is it's got a phone mount. You upload the app, you put that on, and it tells you what your range is and all that. Never worked. I had that car for 3 days. I could never get it to work. We'd finished filming it. I'd moaned about the fact that it never worked in the video. I put my phone up there because I was listening to a podcast, and I drove home, which is about 55 miles. Halfway along that drive, bing! It suddenly came on. Brilliant. It was honestly the software that ran that car was as good as the kind of the car related software in a Tesla. It told me exactly what my range was, how much I could charge it, what the heat was. I could do it all really, really easily. It was fantastic. So I did eventually, but the problem was I couldn't film it because I used in that circumstance, I would use my phone to film it. So I couldn't. But we did update it. But that is a classic example that, the frustration of that obviously if you owned that car, you'd be happy. After 3 days, the software works. But why does it take 3 days?
But for most, the problems are not solved after 3 days, right? So I can give you an endless list of issues people have, in particular with software-related problems in their cars, in their BEVs. And the issue is if you have choice, if you have someone like Tesla who's really mastering that and who's state of the art, I mean, they are really
So hard.
the role model in the market, right?
Yeah.
And consumers can compare. Then you're
Yeah.
dead in the water. I mean, people,
Yeah.
yes, they will sell their BEVs to people who never drive a Tesla because they think they're gonna burn alive or whatever, which is
Yeah.
stupid nonsense. Actually, for all BEVs, by the way, just for the audience here, I think it's 10 times less. That I mean, in Germany, more.
Yes.
It's totally made up nonsense. And actually, if I have to decide if I want to sit in a BEV or an ICE car when it burns, I decide for the BEV because
me too. Plenty of time to get
slowly.
out.
You have a lot of time to get out, and you just have this plate underneath your butt that keeps you safe for quite good time. It can't explode. So a lot of people think it can explode. No, gas can explode because if there's a leak, you have gas and then explodes. This is freaking dangerous and not safe. So I think, there's a lot of misconceptions, unfortunately, in the market, but I don't see that the incumbent automakers are mastering the software issue, not at all. And probably all startups, BEV startups, are much better with software. That's why I believe they have a better opportunity. And I said it, I think on Twitter, I've said it once, or maybe I should say it here. If I would be CEO of an incumbent company right now, I would make sure that my cars have all the cameras and the IT infrastructure installed today for the future. Because if you license from Tesla full self-driving later on when it works, you have the option to do that. If you don't do that, the value of your used cars are falling off the cliff, and your new cars as well. And it's too late to think about how can I, install the infrastructure. A lot of people think, well, what do you need? You need a computer and a good software. It's more than that. It's much more than that to make software work. Slowly, they realize that, but without giving software people a mandate. And I have, a list of long complaints from people who work in software in the German automotive industry. And they write me and they tell, management doesn't get it. I mean, they just don't understand.
I mean, in a sense, it feels like the people who are in the software department are seen as the people who used to make the speedometer or the fuel gauge. That's, the analog pieces of, we need them. It's important. When we finish building the car, as opposed to, no, stop building the car, start building the car with the software.
But it's also the decision-making process. If you have a software team in-house that really understands what needs to be done, and this software department needs to convince, a CEO or a manager of our age who worked for 30 years in that industry and was a tool maker at the start of his career and never really had exposure to software, won't understand it. These people won't understand it. It's just, it sounds for them like, well, that's risky. And yes, you want more power. Yeah, everybody want more influence. And of course, you want a new position in the board. I understand that. But sorry, you have to go the path. So there's no understanding, and that's why I'm saying the biggest problem for the shift are really the people in house and the organization. And if they don't change that, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. That is getting worse and worse. And it's not going to get better soon, I believe. I mean, just VW, they may have a chance in 2025. 26 with the new, Trinity and Artemis project coming out then. But
that's quite a long way off. I mean, a lot could happen in that 4 years.
Market is gone. I mean, they're gonna be a small niche provider. It sounds strange, but it's what people don't realize is that this big elephant, they can fall quicker than you think if something bad is happening, because from a financial perspective, they are not really very healthy. I mean, they have a debt rate that is unacceptable, and without the European Bank would buying bonds from VW all the time, they would be bankrupt already. So obviously, there's governments in there that try to keep this company alive. But what are you doing if people just don't buy these cars anymore? You see this right now. I mean, look back at the last quarter. We have partly 30% negative sales compared to last year, 30%.
Yeah.
And last year was COVID year.
It was terrible.
So
Yes.
we had already
Yeah.
last year, I don't know, minus 25%. Think
Yeah.
about it.
At least.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you and the overheads that those companies have are unimaginable. I mean, just the cost of just breathing for
Exactly.
them,
I
in a
mean,
sense, is
they
huge. Yeah.
have liabilities and commitments with for the long run. So it's a lot of money
Yeah.
here, and that's why I'm saying the first ones to go bankrupt as a supplier base, and this is already happening right now. So I see
Right.
layoffs on a bigger scale happening, and some are going to make it, which there's a lot of interest to work with Tesla for good reason
Yeah.
because they know that's the future. So
Oh, so you think there is interest with the big German companies to work with Tesla? It's not purely
well,
antagonism.
that's the case for Herbert Diess, for instance. I name in particular. There are a few other people like Audi CEO Duesman, definitely interested um, to work together to a certain extent, or at least have a good relationship and all of that. Yeah, they're making their own thing. They are not going to partner with anything with Tesla because there's no benefit for Tesla in doing that. But they are happy that they are here, and I think that's a good thing because competition is good for business. But
Yeah.
they need to change. But with Daimler and BMW, I'm not. I don't think that they are happy. I think they would love to continue the business as it is, and it really depends. But on the supplier base, suppliers in Germany are pretty happy with having Tesla as an option, at least
Right. Yeah.
to get a new customer that really has a product that is shining. And there's a lot happening. I mean, I've just seen yesterday or the day before a list with German companies are supplying to Tesla already since a while, and this will continue. And all the big ones are in there too, like Continental or Bosch, and you name it. Yeah? But also
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
ones. So industry is changing. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It certainly is, and it's been brilliant talking to you, Alex. I mean, we've gone over my normal limit, but that's fine. I think it's perfectly justified. Thank you very much for your time. But I mean, that is a really interesting insight and very fascinating. And I mean, the interior of that factory, from the pictures I've seen, just look extraordinary. I mean, it is an extraordinary.
It is.
Extraordinary. Just quickly, that was one of my key questions. Actually, how long did it take to build? We'll have to go on. Just stick with us, listeners, because it's gone up pretty quickly. I'm assuming much faster than a normal building of that size would appear in Germany.
Yeah. So
traditionally,
all the people complaining about everything goes slow just don't have any idea how long it would normally take, because in Germany you have usually actually 2 to 4 years easily for getting a construction permit, and companies are starting to break ground after that period. So you can add another 2 years to build a factory afterwards, which is totally normal. And Tesla did it in a different way, so they are extremely fast. I mean, there's a lot of critics because how fast Tesla is, that this is something negative. Internationally, a lot of people have the perception that it's slow. It isn't. Would Tesla have liked to be faster than even that? Yes, absolutely. I mean, they've been stressing the authorities in a very nice way, because now they know where the limits are and they understand where the problems are much better. So in that respect, it's been a good thing for the authorities and for the politicians to understand that there are some processes in Germany that definitely could and should be improved. So that's a good thing. But on the other side of the coin, I'm expecting the final permit to arrive end of this month or next month, and Tesla will probably provide a few first show cars, Model Ys, and then need months before they really ramp up. And that will take 1 year or even up to 2 years, which is totally normal. So that's thing.
Absolutely.
Every organization is going through this process, and it just takes its time. And people should be a little bit more having more patience for companies like Tesla.
Yeah. But I mean, from their point of view, it's very nice to have a lot of customers who are impatient. That's quite a
Yeah,
good thing.
absolutely. I mean, just think about it. If they would have sufficient supply, how fast the transformation
Yes.
would go.
Yeah.
And with Giga Berlin, I mean, long run is really to get up to even 2 million vehicles a year. And
Wow.
right now, we know that, for instance, Wolfsburg, I mean, the VW headquarter plant, they have a capacity of 1 million. They had an agreement with the unions for 480,000 this year. And this is
Wow.
not going to happen because of the shortages and the challenges they have.
Right. So it's going to be less than that.
The
Wow.
rumor is that this is going to be the year with the lowest production in Wolfsburg since the end of World War II.
Wow. Wow.
So
That's pretty big.
there's
Big
fear
hit.
in Wolfsburg on the line. People are
Yeah.
fearful for
course.
good reason because they sense and feel what's happening. So, and Tesla is just going the other direction. They would love to be at end of next year at 500,000 vehicles. I doubt
Yeah.
they will manage that, but still, it's going to be extremely impressive, and they're going to ramp up from there. And Austin will be faster because in the US you can just make things faster happen compared to Germany, which is totally normal. And they are sitting on 1 million Cybertruck orders.
Wow.
It's totally crazy. And all the other incumbents and even the new other smaller startups, they just try to get their part of the pie and make their sale. But it also has a lot to do with margin profits, to be honest, which we haven't discussed too. Most BVs sold at the moment, and most of the BVs you're testing on your channel are sold for a loss.
Right.
So, and you just mentioned it that, cars, BMW is saying, here, 24, 25, you get this brilliant, nice car that can do everything like a Tesla can do. Which is too late, and that's the reason why, because they just can't manage the cost in a way that they make a sufficient profit out of it. And that's another big issue. So even if they would sell, let's assume they would have a nice software, Robert, and they have a great car. The ID3 would have a fantastic software, and everything works, and it sells like hot potato. What would happen? I mean, at the moment they are making loss. If they sell really high volume, they can break even and make profit out of that. So that would be just a question of time. So that would be a good development, which is, by the way, why VW is pushing these vehicles in the market like crazy, because they need somehow to get into the profits with it. But every critic would say, of course, well, we get a portion of the profit we would get compared to an ICE SUV. Right. So, which is high margin, and that tension internally is a big problem. And this leads to a lot of negative developments, including brain drain. People are leaving. Good people are leaving. Good engineers are leaving. And not sure if you've seen the chart from Tesla lately. After the AI day, it was kind of a few 100%. I mean, the chart of new people applying for an AI job went up like
wow, of course,
almost a straight line compared to what they had before in AI engineering. So totally crazy.
I mean, if you're a very experienced, production line manager that knows how to make cars and make sure all the parts are there, and you work at Wolfsburg, you might be looking up the road. It's not that far.
The people working right now, they are extremely motivated. You won't believe it. I mean, these people are so energized. They are breathing and so really dying for the mission and to make the difference and to make it happen. And I've heard it from different people that the atmosphere in the organization is fantastic. So,
It's very exciting. Let's catch up again soon, Alex. It's been really good talking to you. Thank you so much, and keep going. Keep plugging away. Keep that. Let's maintain let's steer the ship. Try and steer the ship of the German automotive industry in a positive direction. It's worth it.
I try my best to inform. At least that's something, and happy to everybody who finds that helpful. And yes, definitely, I will continue my work. Always a pleasure talking to you, Robert.
Great stuff.
Great day.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Well, there we go. I really hope you enjoyed that. It's always an immense joy and fascinating to talk to Alex. He's an extraordinary man, and he'll definitely be a returning guest on the Fully Charged Plus podcast. Now, Fully Charged Show team will shortly be tootling up to Glasgow to cover certain aspects of the COP26 conference. I mean, we're not allowed in the posh bit. You've got to remember that. You know, we're in the plebs bit. But we're doing a lot of stuff up there. We will be meeting some amazing guests, recording some fascinating shows, and keeping an eye on what our glorious leaders are up to at this very critical time in human history. So keep an eye out for future episodes of our main channel and, of course, on Fully Charged Plus for some stimulating, thought-provoking gubbins. Well, that's it. As always, if you have been, thank you for listening.